Salve Regina, Mater misericordiae, vita dulcedo, estes nostra salve.
The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. Jesus and his disciples came to the other side of the sea, to the territory of the Gerasenes. When he got out of the boat, at once a man from the tombs, who had an unclean spirit, met him. The man had been dwelling among the tombs, and no one could restrain him any longer, even with chains. In fact, he had frequently been bound with shackles and chains, but the chains had been pulled apart by him, and the shackles smashed. And no one was strong enough to subdue him. Night and day among the tombs and on the hillsides, he was always crying out and bruising himself with stones. Catching sight of Jesus from a distance, he ran and prostrated himself before him, crying out in a loud voice, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I adjure you by God, do not torment me." He had been saying to him, "Unclean spirit, come out of the man." He asked him, "What is your name?" He replied, "Legion is my name. There are many of us." And he pleaded earnestly with him not to drive them away from that territory. Now a large herd of swine was feeding there on the hillside, and they pleaded with him, "Send us into the swine, let us enter them." And he let them, and the unclean spirits came out and entered the swine. The herd of about 2,000 rushed down a steep bank into the sea, where they were drowned. The swine herders ran away and reported the incident in the town and throughout the countryside, and people came out to see what had happened. As they approached Jesus, they caught sight of the man who had been possessed by Legion, sitting there clothed and in his right mind, and they were seized with fear. Those who witnessed the incident explained to them what had happened to the possessed man and to the swine. Then they began to beg him to leave their district. As he was getting into the boat, the man who had been possessed pleaded to remain with him, but Jesus would not permit him, but told him instead, "Go home to your family and announce to them all that the Lord in his pity had done for you." The man went off and began to proclaim in the Decapolis what Jesus had done for him, and all were amazed. The Gospel of the Lord. Jesus. Given the description of the superhuman strength of this man, which is one of the signs of being possessed, we're not talking about someone who had a mental illness, but we're talking about someone who was really possessed by the devil, or in this case, legion. Does anybody know how many soldiers are in a legion? About 6,000 in the Roman legion at Jesus' time. It's a lot of demons, do you think? All harassing this guy. Let's put this into context a little bit more. That evening earlier, Jesus has left the other side of the sea, and he's experienced the storm at sea, and he's calmed the sea. He's told it to be quiet and be still, because the Jewish people understood that the sea was a place that could harbor demons. And so he's literally made the sea holy, you could say. And now he's on the shore and he encounters a guy who has 6,000 demons. Okay? And so he has to do something about this. So they're cast into a herd of about 2,000 pigs. If you consider the economics of a small town, 2,000 pigs was probably the whole economy of that town, if you think about it. Okay, and so their whole economy goes into the sea. Can you understand why these people may have been upset? Okay, their whole economy is gone. And yet they're thrown into, you could say, holy water to dispense of the demons. And so there's a lot of possible commentary in all this at, what justification did Jesus have in getting rid of those pigs like that? However, I would like to bring this into a kind of an analogy where, for the sake of this one man, demons are expelled, and it was at a price. And yet, doesn't Jesus come to save us at a price? And having said that, isn't it kind of a horror that we can't bring ourselves to end a pharmaceutical industry and an industry that calls itself Planned Parenthood? We can't bring ourselves to eliminate such an economy for the sake of babies? Isn't it interesting? And so, although some people are taking great joy, and because of the elections where things have turned around in a sense with the whole posture of Planned Parenthood, the battle is not over. And we cannot stop praying. And we cannot stop being ourselves a people who are promoting life. And we cannot stop praying as a community and being bound as a community that can stand against such demonization. It's interesting that this possessed man, after he's completely freed and healed, he's told to go back home and spread the message of Jesus. Why is that? Why can't he follow Jesus? He's being invited. This is a town that has been occupied by a legion of demons. Jesus, in a sense, is allowing this man who's been healed to start with his family and preach to the whole area so that Jesus can have a foothold in that town, and with a nice community that's centered around the glory of his name, with this community can now have a complete hedge of protection against a possible return of this 6,000. And it is the same way with us. Although it seems that the recent election has maybe given the pro-life movement a victory, it's not time to gloat in the victory. It's time to fortify the city and to become even more zealous about our commitment to Christ and our commitment to life. And the demon of death that haunts us in the abortion industry can only be dealt with in the power of prayer by a people united in Jesus Christ. And so our job is far from finished. And yet, here's something interesting for you to ponder. The only one who can create is God. The devil has a limited number of demons. He may have a lot of them, but he has a limited number. God can create many more angels. And God is always about the creation of more saints. Through beautiful marriages, through the sacrament of baptism, and through young people who are ready to give their lives to Christ. The odds are against the evil one. However, troops that lay dormant and do not take up their arms are no use to Christ. But it does not have to be that way with us, does it?
Regina Celi,
Letare, Alleluia.